So, you want proof that Allah is real? Well, you're not going to get that from today's video. This is just another clear example of the asinine, thinking, and I use that word in air quotes, that the religious are capable of. This is not going to impress anyone, at least not if you have a functional brain in your head. So, prepare for fail, and away we go. Today we're going to take a look at a Muslim channel called FreeQuranEducation and find out that these people really need an education. It's not us, it's them, because these people have problems. Any teacher in any legitimate school who tried this kind of thing, they deserve to get fired. I really don't get how they think that we're going to be at all impressed with anything that they're saying. Mostly, I think, because they can't imagine that we're not the same kind of gullible, overly emotional morons that they are. But we're not, are we? And that's why they fail. So, let's go take a look.
When you look at the world around you, to say that it has no design or no designer is beyond the capacity of the human intellect.
I beg to differ. I have absolutely no problem with it at all. Maybe it might be beyond the religious capacity for a lot of people, but that sounds suspiciously like a you problem. In fact, the more I look at and consider the proposition, the less likely it seems from a rational perspective. Maybe your brain is just addled by the religious nonsense that you've insisted on stuffing in there. Maybe you ought to do something about that.
That we look at everything based upon the meal, who gave it, who made it, who cooked it, the car, who makes it, the building, who built it.
The rocks, the planet, the universe. Wait. Because we have no reason at all to think that any of those things were built, do we? I mean, the religious really like the idea that they were, but rationally speaking, evidentially speaking, we have no reason whatsoever to suspect that it's anything but the workings of the natural world. That brings us right around to fee-fees, because that's ultimately what the religious are really pushing for. At absolutely no time are they actually concerned whether their blind faith accurately comports with objective reality. It just makes them feel good, which means it's really, really dumb.
So the human mind, rather than using its intelligence that it thinks that it has to deny the Creator, is supposed to use that information to prove and to show itself that there is a design to this.
No, you've got that completely backwards. You aren't using your intelligence, you're using your emotions. It makes you feel good to think that there's this invisible father figure in the sky, so you outright deny all of the evidence that we have, so you can get to the emotionally comforting conclusion that you desperately want to reach. If you were using your intelligence and looking for evidence, then a god is the last thing in the world that you would ever conclude. Yet, this isn't about reality, is it? It's all about your fee-fees. And, as I said before, maybe you ought to do something about that.
Now, if somebody said, prove that there is a God, I'm telling you that you are the proof.
Then you're an idiot. It's as simple as that. Because that is not intellectually defensible, period. It's just stroking your immature ego. It isn't presenting objectively verifiable evidence that shows that your conclusions are reasonable, rational, or remotely true. Of course, the religious, they really don't care about any of that, do they? They really want to feel good, so they just get dragged around by the nose by their emotionally held beliefs, such that they lose the capacity to even identify rational thought anymore. I really want it to be true, but that's not a good reason to think that it is true. Please try to do better, because at the moment, You're just making a fool of yourself.
You are the proof that there is a God, that there is a creator. You are the living proof of it. Everything that exists for the reason, and God says this in the Quran. In the Quran, Allah says, do you not look at what's around you? Do you not look inside of your own selves to realize that I exist? Is that not enough evidence for you?
Not remotely. Of course, that just blindly asserts that the Quran is worthwhile in the first place, and you can't actually prove that. Just because a book says a thing, that doesn't make that thing true. You have to do a whole lot better than that, and as we all know, you won't even try. And this is why religion has the problems that it does. It rejects the same critical scrutiny that we exercise every day in favor for wishful thinking that we really shouldn't pay attention to. You don't walk to a street corner and close your eyes and just have faith that there are no cars coming. You stop and you look. You exercise proper care, or you become properly dead. Yet for the religious, the second that their emotional beliefs come up, all that goes right out the window. It all becomes wishes and dreams instead of facts and evidence. And that's stupid. It really is.
I've sent you prophets and messengers blazing with miracles. You have a Quran with you that is immaculate. You have the world around you. You have your body and how it is designed. You have all of these things that if your intellect were allowed to just go its own path and let it be used as God wanted to be used, your intellect would confer with that evidence I have given you.
And that's a whole lot of empty assertions that you'll need to back up. Prove God. Well, prove Allah in this case, I guess, but I'd be satisfied if any of them could prove that any of the supposed gods that man has made up were demonstrably real. Do that first, then we'll talk. Of course, they have absolutely no interest in any of that, do they? They'd rather point to their books and their beliefs and pretend that that ought to be enough. But it simply isn't. If you want to impress us, then you have to produce verifiable evidence. But they don't really care about that at all, do they? They don't care about us much, do they? Unless they catch us, and then they try to kill us, which is another problem in and of itself. Because we're the nameless, faceless enemy of their faith, but they don't care about convincing us that their ideas are valid, because that takes effort, and these people know they can't come up to our level. It's why they insist that everybody has to go down to theirs, where faith is all you need. But that's not true. It's not. Faith is a complete waste of time, and anybody who doesn't know that is a moron.
The problem is when the human being gets enough intelligence that they think themselves superior to everything else.
Meaning when we're smart enough not to fall for your idiotic religious faith. Again, that sounds a whole lot like a you problem. You can come up here, but we're not going to go down there. That is the issue that we're having, though. We're just too smart to fall for your crap. You don't have an intellectual answer to the questions that we ask because you just don't care about the truth. So long as it strokes your immature ego, you'll go with it no matter how dumb it actually is. And how is that our fault? It seems like you've got all the work to do, and maybe you should get started on that.
This is the problem. When we allow our intelligence to make us greater than our own design, and we start trying to manipulate the world and the ideas of how it became through our own understanding of it.
Meaning, we know a hell of a lot more than you do. A hell of a lot more than the ignorant pedophile goat herders that wrote your asinine book, and now you want to pretend that we're the ones with the problems, not you. Yeah, you got that backwards, pal. You're not even thinking remotely rationally. Maybe you ought to get an education, climb your way out of the 14th century, and come to grips with the fact that your ridiculous religion is unscientific bunk. Trust me, it can only help.
And that's just not the way it's supposed to be. You'll never understand this world. You'll never understand its intricacy. You'll never understand the complete anatomy of how the human body works. We just not. Our human brains are not going to allow us within our 90 to 100 years. Maybe the next people will add to it and other people will add to it, but we'll never fully comprehend it. We'll never fully comprehend what's out there in space and things of that nature. So that is part of the test.
We're doing pretty well, if you ask me. We know a whole lot more than the idiots who came up with your ridiculous religion. Most of us are living in countries that are doing far better than yours are. I'd say we're doing okay. Knowledge is a continual process of learning, of improving, of getting better. Maybe you guys ought to get your nose out of the Quran and give it a try. Again, it can only help.
If somebody says, I want you to show me living proof that there is a God that exists, show it to me tangibly, I would tell you one thing right now. There's a book that does that very beautifully.
Then you don't understand the definition of the words. The book is the claim. It isn't proof that the claim is true. It's telling stories. You have to independently verify that those stories actually happened as described. Go ahead. Get to work. Just because you really like the stories, that doesn't actually get you anywhere. When we say provide tangible proof, that means do more than read from a book of mythology. Produce your God. Just trot his ass out here for us to examine. Provide evidence that Allah is more than a character in a bad book from the Middle Ages. If you can't do that, then we're not interested. Come back when you have something of substance to present. Because until then, we'll just go back to laughing at your idiocy, because that's really all that it is.
There's a book that will give you all of the proof that you need, that will be better than anything I can ever tell you. Do we have a table with the Qur'ans around? Go to the table where they are giving out information. Pick up that one book called the Qur'an and read it. Read it. If you do not find within it the answers that you're looking for the purpose of life and the fact that there's a creator, then I can't help you with any words that I can say.
Again, that's a you problem, isn't it? Because the Quran has no answers any more than the Bible or the Vedas or any other religious book out there. It's just a lot of claims that were made by people who demonstrably didn't have any answers. They're all just claims. Empty claims. Claims that cannot be independently verified. Claims that cannot be demonstrated with objective evidence. It's what you'd like to be true, not what you can prove is actually true. And we're not interested in what you believe. We care about what you can prove. Put up or shut up. It's really that easy.
Because these are the words of the Creator. Yes, they are translated into another language and they've lost some of the meaning, but they were enough for me. They were enough for our brother here, Yusuf Chambers, and they were enough for a lot of people in this room.
Which doesn't say a lot of positive things about you, does it? Stop being dumb. Come up to our level. Stop being an emotional mess and try thinking rationally for once in your life. Because this is really where the whole thing completely falls apart, because the religious, they just don't care if any of it is true, so long as it gives them an emotional woody. But that's not reality, that's fantasy. And whether you like it or not, it's time to grow the hell up.
So here's my request to you, and it's the only thing I can say to you. If you're sincere and you want to know the truth, you really want to know the truth, then go home tonight. Go by yourself. I don't care whether it's in your room or in your car or wherever it is. Make sure you're alone. And say these words. Even if you don't really mean them right, or you don't really believe them right now. You don't believe there's a God. Just say these words and mean it. Say, Creator. If there is a Creator out there that created me, guide me to the truth.
And what makes you think we haven't already done that? I mean, I can tell you from personal experience that I have done it dozens, maybe even hundreds of times in my life. You act like you're the first one to ever come up with what you're saying, but you're wrong. Everybody says that, and we do it. And guess what? Nothing happens. Nothing at all. When I say, prove to me that you're real, nothing happens. Any deity worth their salt is going to know what it would take to convince me that they were real, and I remain completely unconvinced. And so long as I remain unconvinced, so long as your deity, your supposed deity, since you haven't proven this thing is real in the first place, but so long as they aren't willing to do what it really ought to understand that I require, I'm going to continue to think that you and your entire stupid religion are just full of crap. I know you don't like that, but I don't really care. You're not going to convince me with anything less than objective proof that your God is real. You got any of that? I didn't think so.
That's all you have to say. If there is a creator who created me, guide me to the truth. I do that as a Muslim at least minimum 17 times every single day in my prayers.
That seems like overkill, doesn't it? It sounds like a recipe for self-delusion. So if you have to keep asking, does that mean that you've never received a convincing answer? I mean, why would you keep doing it if Allah has already ponied up that evidence? So you keep deluding yourself over and over and over and over again in hopes that someday you might get an answer that convinces you. You know what you're really doing though? You're brainwashing yourself. You're just chanting rhythmically, altering the function of your brain until you're so cockeyed that you'll believe absolutely anything. And this is just cultic behavior. If you think this is supposed to prove your case, yeah, you've got the entire thing ass backwards.
I ask for guidance to the right path. If you say that sincerely, and you're really sincere about it, and you're willing to follow that path wherever it may go, you will find the truth. Because it says in the Quran that we guide those who will to walk upright. Whoever searches for our ways, we will guide them to our paths.
Yet it doesn't work, does it? This is all down to individual interpretation. You ask for a sign, and then you spend all of your time trying to identify what that sign is. Well, who says there will be a sign at all? This reminds me of a call that I heard recently where someone said when they were really young, they asked God to prove himself to her. Then, years later, when she was sick and had a fever, she had a supposed experience that she took as the culmination of her earlier prayer. What took God so long? She has no clue at all. This is what happens when you keep looking for something that you have no clue what it will look like in the end. It's one of those, I'll know it when I see it things. Yeah, but that's not how it works. That's called wishful thinking. It's pure confirmation bias, believing that you'll get an answer and then just latching onto something because you get sick and tired of waiting. But that doesn't mean it's an actual answer, and that doesn't mean there's an actual God. This is really why we laugh at these idiots so much. They say all these things with a completely straight face. They don't understand the con job that they're doing in their own heads, and then when the skeptics come by, because they don't want to look like complete whack jobs, they just rationalize this in their heads into a form that they think might make some kind of rational sense. Except it doesn't. So we ask, well, how do you know that this was an answer from God or Allah or whatever? And they don't have an answer for that, at least not one that stands up to any kind of critical scrutiny whatsoever. How do you know that? How have you rationally tested it in order to verify that it is as you desperately want to believe that it was? They don't have anything like that at all, and they don't even try. As this guy says, well, I can't help you then. Well, of course not, because we're not stupid enough to follow you down the religious rabbit hole. You're doing it all wrong. You're doing intelligence completely backwards. We're just pointing it out, and you're just sitting there self-satisfied because you're getting the dopamine shot in the noggin that you so desperately want. But that doesn't make any of the things that you believe true. But you don't care about that, and we do. Maybe, just maybe, hear me out here, but maybe you should try caring. Maybe it ought to be important to you. Think about it. I'm just trying to help.
Bum